everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. You know, jails have been in the headlines in the last month or 2 months, and a lot of us make a lot of assumptions about jails, quality of jails, how they're managed, and as you dig into it, you find out you really don't know that much. So we decided we would dedicate a half an hour to talk about jails, how they are statutorily defined, and how they are managed in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department, and how they self-regulate and how their oversight system works. Joining us for our conversation today, Sheriff Cameron Noel from Beaver County and Chief Deputy Sheriff Darin Durfey from Utah County. Thank you both for joining us today. Thank you. The sheriff is defined by statute in state law that every county has to have a sheriff, has a chief law enforcement officer. How about the jails? Where do the jails come from?
Well, the jails, if you look back and you look in our country, the office of sheriff and what they are responsible for is so much different in the east as you move towards the west and see exactly what they do. The office of sheriff in Utah has lots of responsibilities, and as you said, they're all defined in code of what we do, and one of those things is defined is to run the county jail and to incarcerate those that may have to go to prison. And we've got certain requirements that we follow and what we have to do. So,
as a jail is defined, does every county have to have a jail?
No. They don't have to have one, but most in our state there's 29 counties, and I believe there's 27 jails in the state of Utah right now. So, I mean, I guess the obvious question is, if you happen to be apprehended in a county that doesn't have a jail, what do? Just send you home with a note to your mom? Or I mean, you're still going to go to jail, but it's probably going to be in the neighboring county under contract.
Okay, so county jails can contract with each other, much like some municipalities can with the county.
Correct.
So that there's a system in place. Does the state law require that every county have an incarceration facility? Or have access to one, I mean.
Would have access to, yes. So there's actually 3 counties in the state of Utah that contract with other counties. You have Morgan County, who contracts with Weber. You have Paiute and Wayne County that contract with Sevier.
Okay.
So
Do they even, it's just kind of a funny question, do they even have like a single holding cell between the time they bring you in before they get you to Sevier County?
I suspect most of them do, yes. As a matter of processing and getting that person arrested and then transported to the contracting jail.
You don't have to share the cell with Otis or anything like that. So there is a requirement, though, for every county to have a way of apprehending and holding people until they can get them before a judge or justice.
That's correct.
You have, I guess I would say, a medium-sized jail?
Well, I've been in for 25 years. We went from a 20-bed facility to a 400-bed facility. And the difference with my facility is we hold those inmates, but the majority of them, 95% of them, we contract with the state of Utah for Department of Corrections. So the majority of my inmates are DOC inmates, but I also have room for contracting with other agencies, such as Salt Lake County. We're in the process of contracting with them to hold some of their inmates, and we also hold, of course, our own local county inmates.
What about your facility?
We're 1,172 beds. We used to contract with ICE. We no longer do that. We primarily just hold those that are pretrial detainees awaiting trial, and those that have been convicted and sentenced to jail.
And so instead of going to the correction system, some of them go in through condition of probation.
Correct.
So you're one of those, I guess you'd call a cop county.
We are. Well, really every county that has a county jail would be a COP facility. So that basically is somebody who is sentenced to prison, but instead of going to prison, sentenced to jail in lieu of that prison sentence. But we don't contract with the state, unlike Beaver and some of the other counties throughout the state. We just hold our own.
And we're going to take a quick break. We're going to move on to the topic and get inside the jail and find out how they run. We'll do that right after this commercial break. You're watching The County Seat.
There's one more, here we go again. I tell myself I'm not enough, but one more time is not enough. One last kiss and then you were gone, and I'm here wishing you could stay a little longer. stay a little longer. Wishing you could stay a little longer.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
If you're looking for gold at the end of the rainbow, you'll probably be disappointed, because in Paiute County, the only thing you'll find at the end of a rainy day is the promise of adventure. Highway 89 is your access point through Marysville and the historic trails of Bouillon Canyon. Find yourself in the mountains 1 minute and the desert the next as you follow in the footsteps of the pioneers. Whitewater raft, fish, hike, all within a few minutes of a comfortable bed and a warm meal. Find out why the world has made Paiute County its off-road destination. Paiute County, the place where the rainbow ends.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about jails and how they function, what their statutory authority is. I do want to kind of get inside the jail, not that I want to spend any time in either of your facility. I'm sure they're very nice. But I do want to kind of cover internally how jails work. I mean, you alluded to contracting, condition of probation. What does it cost across the state to house an inmate?
Well, Chad, when you look at those costs, they are different amounts because you do need to add everything in for that particular jail. The infrastructure, the costs compared to his area and my area, the costs that you have to pay your corrections officers to work in there, the type of facility that you've got. Does it take to house, if you've got 25 inmates in a particular pod, does it take 3 or 4 guards to watch them, or was it built to where you can watch them with two or 3 safely and effectively? So all of those things come into play. They have what they call a core rate from the state, where jail commanders or sheriffs can come and meet on a regular basis and see what that rate is. Now you can only imagine when the new prison is built what that rate's going to be. I believe right now it's almost close to $100. It's probably going to be more than that. So right now, though, the state is paying for contract prisoners about $54 a day, I believe. And
you can probably make ends meet on that, and that would be tough for you, right?
It would, yes.
Most people see the relationship of the jail between Andy and Barney and the 2 cells that Otis is in, and it's really a lot more complex than that. The sheriff still is ultimately responsible for the jail.
Right.
How does that chain of command work?
Well, typically there's a jail commander that's either promoted or appointed by the sheriff, and he or she is responsible for the administration of the Corrections Bureau or the corrections component of the sheriff's office. And then in rank you would have your deputies, sergeants, lieutenants, some entities captains, and then your chief deputy or your jail commander. And that varies by county. Some counties actually have a lieutenant that is their jail commander. So it all depends on structure, and that's kind of, as Cameron said, each county differs in how they do things. We're a direct supervision facility, which means the deputy's actually in the section with the inmates. There's other jails that are more of a linear type facility. So in a direct supervision facility, it's a lot more staff intensive because of that relationship, putting one officer in a section with 64 inmates.
And so they're constantly in direct contact, so to speak, with a jail personnel.
They are.
As opposed to a situation where they just go down on lockdown during the night. How does that work?
Well, they would go down. They would actually be locked down at night.
Right.
So your daily routine is very similar. It's just the structure of how it's set up. So In a lot of facilities, they actually have somebody that goes through periodically, checks on the inmates. In this case, in a direct supervision setting, that deputy is in the section with the inmates, is responsible.
That's that pod concept,
it is.
basically. I guess my question is, a lot of guys come from patrol or something, they end up in a jail. It would seem to me that the training and the mindset has to be completely different. Maybe explain a little bit about how that mentality has to shift.
Well, I've done both myself, and a lot of my officers have done both also. They've gone through corrections, and they've also gone through the patrol side, gone through both of those trainings at the academy. In our state, you're required to hold a certificate for a corrections officer if you're going to work in a jail, and you can also become a peace officer and hold that certificate. It is different. It's more of a controlled environment in the jail. There are certain things, but it's also just as dangerous. There's just as many threats, just as many problems that can happen within there, but it is more controlled. You have other issues that come about inside of jails that you don't normally deal with out on the street. But it is still a very dangerous position.
If you are in a patrol situation, you look at a situation, assess the danger of the situation, and escalate as needed as far as the exercise of your authority. And it would almost seem to be, to some degree, a reverse in the jail. I don't know if that's correct or not. Where
that is.
You start with it mostly in control, and then as behavior allows, back from that control state. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, your tools are different. So in a jail setting, in a corrections setting, your mind and your mouth, your ability to communicate, is a lot more important than obviously tools. So in other words, there are no firearms, there are no, a lot of things like that. So your ability to communicate and gain compliance through communication is a lot more paramount a lot of times than it is on the enforcement side. I've worked both sides, and it's very key that you're able to do that.
Excellent. We're going to take a quick break, continue our conversation here on the county seat. We're talking about jails, and we want to delve into oversight when we come back, and how the sheriffs patrol themselves in this issue. You're watching the county seat.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
The Utah Farm Bureau began as a collection of farmers supporting each other to raise the food we enjoy. Today, Farm Bureau membership encompasses everyone, whether ranchers, growers, or just everyday folks like you and me. Members enjoy discounts on items like vehicles and ATVs, or insurance that's very affordable. You don't have to be a farmer to join, and dues are small, but together we make a big difference in keeping our food supply local and abundant. Join Utah Farm Bureau.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about jails and how they operate and what kind of protections. That's where we're going to go now. The process of jails is evolving. I look at what we've done in the legislature and some changes in how we look at justice in the last few years, RJI and a couple of the other bills that passed. So obviously the landscape of having people incarcerated changes regularly. How do you guys compensate for? How do you deal with that?
There's ongoing training that corrections officers have to obtain. The Sheriff's Association is very good at providing training that's applicable and typical. It's legal-based training. So what's the current case law? What has changed? What are things that we need to be changing our policy or our procedure or our practice based on current case law that may have changed.
And this is required certified training, right?
It is.
So it comes statutorily through and through like the peace officer.
It's all under the oversight or purview of post. Yes.
Okay. So that being in the situation, we're getting the education that we're supposed to be getting, or hopefully so, and jails are evolving. But as the headlines have kind of indicated, there are some issues that come up. And I would imagine that running a jail is very tough if you're in a situation where you're in control a lot. It's just you have so many things that you can control. It doesn't seem like it would take a lot to get a little bit skewed or awry. How does the profession of police officers deal with keeping that in check?
Well, Chad, I could say, you know, in Utah, we're pretty lucky. We've got 27 jails here, and literally tens of thousands of inmates that have come in and out of our facilities, and the type of officers and the things that we produce in our state, as far as the jails and the checks and the things, we're very lucky. And you're right, there have been some issues that have come up, and we're going to have to deal with those issues. But compared to a lot of states, we're pretty lucky with what we've got and how we handle that and our staff. And as a sheriff, you know, I'm responsible. I contract with 3 cities to also do law enforcement. I am the primary law enforcement official of my county. But that also, I have to weigh that. I also have a jail that I have to run. I've got contracts and things. I've got to make sure my staff is adequately paid and taken care of. I've got to make sure that I've got good folks that we can trust, that we can, to the safety and security of these inmates. We want to make sure that they're educated and that they get the things that they need so they're not repeat offenders. You brought up Otis. The reason Otis came back every week, Chad, because he had no programming. He had nowhere to go. So he got out on Monday, and on Tuesday he was drinking again. So we hope that we're not just a warehouse facility in Utah, a lot of us. Now some folks, there's nothing we can do about it, and that's where we come in. We're going to just have to house them and keep them away from our public.
I guess one of the questions that probably is going through people's mind right now is that, you know, the sheriff keeps peace in the community, and the end result is going to jail if you're not keeping peace. Who keeps peace on the jails? Well,
that's, as you alluded to earlier, there's a jail commander. There's the sheriff who's responsible to oversee the jail. And I think, you know, as you were talking about checks and balances, there's policy and procedure, there's post orders, there's a lot of things that go into how to run a jail and how that should function, and oversight. So you have training, you have supervision, you have all these things that are expected of your staff to be professional and run a good, solid organization. So when you talk about policing the jail, you have good supervisors that are able to do that. And if there is an incident, then we would ask for either an outside entity to come in and do an investigation, or if it's something that's not that serious, it's just a violation of policy, we would do it, have an internal affairs investigation.
So if it's a road department, you can call the county auditor and they'll come and look at it. Is there any kind of review process because your county auditor is not going to be able to look at the jail and understand it? You know, is there some organization that kind of does like inspections and reviews and quote audits?
There is. The Utah Sheriff's Association actually has jail standards that inspectors go out and inspect the various different jails. I actually happen to be the one that's the audit and inspection supervisor. I have 2 other individuals that work for me. We work for the Sheriff's Association, and we go out and we conduct site inspections, and we also do audits based on a self-audit or a self-review that those jails do. So what we do is we review their policy, we review their practice and their proofs, and all of that combined together, we determine whether or not that jail is actually doing what they say they're supposed to do.
So is it kind of like the sergeant in boot camp, and he has a surprise KP, and so you better be ready when he shows up? Or is, I mean, are they just flash inspections, or are they planned, or?
It's a review that is ongoing. So a lot of times that's self-audit. There's 601 standards. And those are legal-based standards. Each jail is responsible to do the self-audit, and that gives them an opportunity to review their practice, review their policy, make sure that it's in compliance with current case law, and make any adjustments as necessary. And once they're done with their self-audit and they've submitted that, then the inspector reviews that self-audit, reviews their policy, reviews their proofs that they're required to submit, and then we go out and do an inspection. Generally speaking, they know when that inspection is going to come. But you've done a lot of legwork prior to that in making sure that what they say they do, they actually are doing.
So do you ever get, I mean, obviously the next question people have is, do you get caught by surprise?
Yes, yes. And it's great as a sheriff to be able to see these reports, because they're not always favorable. There's always something where they may make a recommendation, and I'll get a copy of that, and they'll say, we may see a security issue here, or we may see some kind of a health issue, something. You may not be feeding the inmates the right types of meals, all kinds of different things. As a sheriff, I can't always be there all the time inside of that facility. So it's great to have them show up on a surprise visit, send me the results of that. Of course, I like to always have a great review, but that doesn't always happen. And so we make the changes accordingly, and then we move on. So
as a sheriff, you see it more of a tool to get yourself in compliance rather than basically a scorecard for your college entrance exam.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break here on the county seat. We're talking about jails. We will come back with some closing thoughts from our guests, and go on from there. We'll see you in a minute on the county seat.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
Look south to adventure. Look south to beauty. Look south to San Juan County. Out here, the road goes on forever, and what you'll find will change how you see the world. Climb on your OHV and discover forgotten landscapes and vistas that challenge the imagination. From Blanding and Monticello to the cliff faces of Monument Valley, we're open and ready for you to explore. San Juan County, Utah's Canyon Country.
All local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
The Layton Hills Mall offers more than just shopping. Bring the whole family and enjoy SeaQuest Interactive Aquarium to feed the fish and exotic birds, hold live reptiles, and even swim with the stingrays. Or pump up the action and visit Dartside, Utah's premier soft foam dart tag arena. And don't forget the Great Room Escape, where you can challenge your friends to solving mysteries inside themed rooms. So come and experience great fun at the Layton Hills Mall and visit playindavis.com for other great activities.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is about jails and what it takes to supervise them and make sure that they run correctly and efficiently. I guess we're at final thoughts. What's the biggest challenge in the jails?
Probably the biggest challenge that I've learned is liability, and the amount of liability that sheriffs have, not only in our state but around the country. Just recently, a good sheriff that from the state of California was sentenced to 3 years in prison, runs a 20,000 bed facility there, And because of the fact that there was some unuse or misuse of force in his facility, he's going to go to prison over that. And it's a big issue. You have people that may commit suicide in there. You have medical problems, all kinds of things that the sheriff is primarily responsible for. And when they do the lawsuit, which happens on a regular basis to most sheriffs in most counties in our state and throughout the country, it starts out with the sheriff, goes to the jail commander, and then it moves down into the commissioners and all those. And everybody gets named in that, and it's a long, drawn-out process. So it's great to have this checklist to go off of and say, we've done this and this and this, and this is our history, and this is the things that we're doing and continually doing. So,
of all those liabilities, Darin, in a jail your size, what is the biggest? What do you see as the biggest trap, so to speak?
Well, the biggest area of liability for the sheriff's office is corrections, but the biggest area of liability in corrections is medical. A lot of times these folks come in, they're not too concerned about their health care before they come to jail. They live a very at-risk lifestyle, and so they come to us, and then we're responsible to address those health concerns, health problems that they may have once they're incarcerated. So providing adequate care, addressing those emergent needs, it's a huge area of liability.
Is that almost the most frightening thing for you, more than a you know, this jailer pushed me around sort of thing, is to hear the news that you had an inmate die overnight and you don't know why?
Sure.
Terrible.
Yeah. You know, nobody wants to have somebody die in custody, clearly, and there's a number of factors that come into that. There may be natural causes. It may be an overdose. A lot of times people come in with narcotics secreted in places that you and I would not do that. And it's impossible to find, and at times we have people who overdose because they've swallowed or secreted narcotics. So that's a huge issue. Suicide's a big issue. Obviously people have made poor choices and come in. It's a very vulnerable time for them when they come into jail.
Your thoughts?
Exactly the same. Just before I walked into this studio today, I placed an order for 30 vials of Narcan, a new product that's out there, and I had at my jail medical staff do that for me. So it's stuff we need to stay on top of.
In a single word, is opioids your biggest problem right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for inviting us into your home each week for the county seat. These conversations are important, and we do make a permanent record of them on our YouTube channel. And you can go to our website and see the posting. You can follow us on Facebook and share these with your friends, because being involved in local government is where your life happens. And we'll see you next week on the county seat.